He called me sweetheart in front of 40 officers. The room laughed, because they thought I was harmless. Decoration. The kind of woman who sat quietly while men talked about real wars. I smiled. Just once. Because I recognized the voice of the man who'd mocked me. He was the brother of the soldier who died saying my name. When the Admiral asked for my call sign, I finally told him. And the moment I said Reaper Zero, every sound in that room died. Like the storm I once flew through, coming back to claim its debt. My name is Henriette Vaughn, and that was the moment the past stopped being silent. Winter in Anchorage draped the world in silence thick enough to hear your own pulse. The sky hung low, iron gray, pressing against the frozen airfield that stretched beyond my window. Every morning I wiped frost from the helmet sitting on the table, an old ritual, as if keeping it polished could stop the memories from fading. Silence had never felt like peace to me. In war, it only meant someone wasn't coming home. After the missions ended, the quiet moved in. My husband left before the first thaw, his boots leaving perfect prints in the snow. He'd said he couldn't live competing with the sky. He was right. I loved the air more than the ground. The divorce papers stayed on the kitchen table until the ink froze. My mother still wrote letters in her looping script, one every month. The last one read, "You fly well, but you've forgotten how to land in people's hearts." I folded it and tucked it beside my father's silver ring, the same ring that once smelled of oil and jet fuel when he taught me that precision was a kind of respect. One night, as the wind scraped against the glass, my computer pinged. A message from the Pentagon blinked like a warning light. Special Operations Joint Training Program, San Diego Naval Base. I stared at it for a long time. I had promised never to return, but silence was killing me faster than storms ever did. I packed light. The ring went into my flight jacket pocket. Before boarding, I scanned the command roster. The last name froze me mid-breath. Admiral Callan Hayes. I'd seen that name before, in the report of a mission that ended with his brother's death. The wind outside howled through the hangar door, cold enough to cut through metal. Time heals, they say. But in Alaska, nothing really thaws, not even me. I was 33 the night the storm over the Bering swallowed the world. The radar went black. The wind howled past 120 miles an hour, and the command tower's voice crackled through the static, ordering me to abort. If we wait for clear skies, we'll only bring home bodies. I told them, and throttled forward. Lieutenant Alvarez was the only one crazy enough to strap in beside me. The manual called flights like this suicidal. The manual had never met me. We flew so low, the skids nearly kissed the ice, steering only by the reflection of the moon on the snow, because that was the one thing that didn't lie. Tracer fire tore the dark apart. One round hit Alvarez's seat, another sliced the hydraulics. I locked the stick between my knees, muscles screaming, feet braced against the pedals. 2 minutes later, through the white blur, I saw movement, men waving from a crater of ice. SEALs, the team we'd come for. I dropped the bird without instruments or GPS, the rotors slicing the storm. When the hatch opened, wind screamed through the cabin. A man staggered forward, face bloodied and raw from the cold. "You came," he rasped. "Always." I said. His name, I learned later, was Lieutenant Michael Hayes. We brought them all out alive. On the return, an engine exploded. We landed on one. The base lights were 2 miles away, close enough to smell the fuel. I thought that was the end of it. 3 months later, word came that Michael Hayes was dead. Another crash, another storm, this one under his brother's command. The report listed my mission under a code name, Operation Bering Ridge. Pilot, Reaper Zero. When I asked why that name, my superior said, "Because you flew through hell and came back with the dead." I carried it ever since. The survivor and the guilty. Every time someone whispered, "Reaper Zero," something inside me flinched. Survival. I learned. Doesn't always feel like victory. San Diego was nothing like Alaska. The sun cut through the water like glass. The air thick with salt and confidence. On the wall at the SEAL base, A slogan read, "Only the brave return." I smiled, half amusement, half ache. I had returned, but bravery had little to do with it. Admiral Callan Hayes entered the briefing room with the kind of authority that bent the air around him. When he spoke, the entire table went still. "This is Lieutenant Commander Vaughn," he said shortly. "She'll advise on aviation support." Then he turned away as if he'd already forgotten my name. During the first joint session, he smirked across the table. "Maybe we'll let our lady pilot handle the turbulence section," he said. "She probably knows it better than we do." Laughter rippled through the room. I wrote one line in my notebook. "Don't react. Wait for the moment." Later, outside the hangar, a young officer approached me. "They don't mean harm, ma'am," she said quietly. "It's just the way it is." I looked at her. Lieutenant Lexi Moore. All nerves and promise. "That's exactly how harm begins," I told her. She looked down, ashamed, and I saw my younger self in her silence. That evening, reviewing training files, I froze. A line of code, Falcon Unit 6, the same SEAL unit I had pulled out of the ice. The next day, in the officers' lounge, Callan told a story like it was a joke. "Once, a pilot screwed up so badly in bearing, the SEALs had to dig themselves out," he said. The room roared with laughter. I turned away before anyone could see my face. He didn't know the pilot he mocked was standing 10 feet behind him. Not yet. At dusk, I stood on the pier, watching waves slam against the hulls. The air was warmer here, but the sting was sharper. Some storms hit your aircraft, some hit your name. Monday, 800 hours. The briefing room was all glass, steel, and arrogance. I stood before 42 officers, file in hand, explaining flight coordination when Admiral Callan Hayes cut me off. "Before we go any further, tell me something, sweetheart. What's your call sign?" Laughter spread like gunfire. I met their eyes. Steady. "Reaper 0. The room froze. The projector clicked off. Someone dropped a cup. Silence swallowed the laughter whole. Callan's face went pale. "You wanted the call sign. Admiral," I said. "You just got it." Commander Vic broke the quiet. "Sir, she's the pilot from Bering Ridge," I added, calm. "That should qualify me to discuss turbulence." The meeting ended in suffocating quiet. By noon, whispers filled the base. "She's the Reaper. She saved a SEAL team." And he mocked her. That afternoon, Callan's aide delivered a note. "Report to the Admiral, EO 900 tomorrow." As I left, Lexi Moore ran up. "Ma'am, I checked the Bering Ridge file. It's under his name. He lost his brother that week." He didn't hate the Reaper for being deadly. He hated the name for reminding him who the storm let live. His office smelled of salt and varnish. "Quite the show yesterday," he said. "It wasn't a show, it was an answer." He leaned back. "My brother died because a pilot didn't have your luck." I met his eyes. "Then stop punishing the next one for surviving." That afternoon, I reviewed accident files. His signature repeated, "Pilot requested abort. Denied." My stomach turned. His brother's death had been his own doing. Alvarez called from Alaska. "Michael Hayes said your name before he blacked out. You were his last sentence." That night, Lexi found me. "People are divided, ma'am. Some respect you, some don't." "Good. Let them talk." "Are you angry?" "Anger needs fuel. I'm running on something colder." Before she left, she whispered, "Rumor says he tried to reassign your file." "He can't bury a storm," I said. "It's already hit." Hours later, a message blinked on my screen. "You shouldn't have said Reaper 0. Some ghosts don't like being called." The moon caught my reflection. The storm wasn't over. It had just changed shape. The base slept under a thin layer of fog, lights flickering against the wet concrete. I sat alone in the records room, surrounded by metal cabinets and the soft hum of security vents. My hand trembled as I flipped open file 204, Mission Kachemak Gulf. Commander, Admiral Callan Hayes. My breath caught. It was the operation that killed Michael Hayes, the same man I'd pulled out of the ice months before. The printed report read, "Weather warnings acknowledged, continued as planned." But in the original log attached beneath, a faint indentation showed a deleted line. Pilot requested abort. Commander overruled. The air seemed to thin. His brother hadn't died in a storm. He'd died in a decision Callan never faced. Every insult, every wall of arrogance suddenly made sense. He'd been punishing every pilot since, because he couldn't punish himself. The door creaked. I turned. "Ma'am?" Lexi Moore stood there, wide-eyed. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for the truth. If they find you, they'll end you." "Then let them." She hesitated, lifted her phone, and snapped a photo of the page. "If you fall, I'll make sure this doesn't disappear." By morning, I was summoned by base security. A cold-eyed officer leaned forward. "You accessed restricted data without clearance." "I accessed my own history." He smirked. "Then you know it never belonged to you." It hit me then. This wasn't just Callan's sin. It was a system built to bury ghosts. That night, my phone rang. "Stop digging! Henriette!" Callan's voice rasped through the static. "Some storms aren't meant to be cleared. And some men aren't meant to stay gods," I said, before he hung up. I reached for the small box in my pocket, slipping my father's ring back on my finger. "Precision is respect," he'd said. Tonight, precision meant naming the truth. When I returned to my office after midnight, the drawer was empty. Every trace of File 204 was gone. Only a single note lay on my desk. "You shouldn't have come this far, Reaper." For the first time since the Bering storm, the cold I felt wasn't from weather, it was from the truth itself. 2 days later, I sat in the holding room, temporarily suspended for cooperation. The air smelled of paper and metal. The door opened, and Callan stepped in. The light made him look older, smaller somehow. "You found the file," he said quietly. "You deleted it. I protected what's left of this unit." "No," I said. "You protected your pride." He met my eyes. "Do you think you're the only one who hears ghosts at night?" "No," I answered. "But I'm the only one who answers them." He exhaled, stood, and placed a small USB on the table. "Play this before you destroy me." When I pressed play, the static filled the room. Then Michael's voice, faint and cracking. "Request abort." Callan's voice overrode it. "Negative, continuous planned." Then, silence, until a whisper barely audible. "Tell my brother. The pilot did everything right." Tears blurred the screen. Callan had kept that recording for 7 years, not to hide guilt, but because he couldn't bear the mercy in his brother's last words. Later, Alvarez called. "You found it, didn't you?" "The truth?" "No, the forgiveness." He was right. What I'd uncovered wasn't Callan's crime. It was his wound. When I wrote my final report, I stopped at the section labeled Recommendations. The cursor blinked, waiting for judgment. I could demand punishment or offer a lesson. My father's words echoed. "Flying isn't about avoiding storms. It's about staying level until they pass." I typed, "Recommend reassignment to Leadership Ethics Instruction." Minutes after sending it, an email flashed back from command. "Reaper 0, report to Washington. Your presence is required at the hearing." I read the name slowly, Reaper 0. For the first time, it didn't sting. It didn't mean death anymore. It meant survival. Outside, helicopters thundered across the San Diego sky, their shadows sweeping the runway like ghosts that finally had somewhere to go. Lexi joined me on the tarmac. "So, what happens now?" I watched the horizon turn gold. "Now," I said, fastening my flight helmet, "we fly into a different kind of storm." The sunset caught my visor, the reflection pale blue, like the ice of Bering Ridge, where everything began. The morning air in Washington carried a thin bite of early autumn, sharp enough to sting the lungs. Inside the Joint Naval Command hearing room, the cold light from the ceiling struck the long wooden table, turning every face pale and precise. I sat in the witness chair, the nameplate before me, reading Reaper Zero. Across from me sat Admiral Callan Hayes, hands still, eyes hollow. The silence felt heavier than judgment itself. "Commander Vaughn," the board representative said, "please state your findings." I opened the report. My voice didn't shake. Each page turned like a blade drawn slow. Radar data was altered. Safety warnings ignored. The pilot requested abort. I looked up. That order was denied. No one moved. I closed the folder. 2 men died, one because of the storm, the other because of command pride. Both deserve to be remembered honestly. A chair scraped. Callan stood, uninvited. "She's right," he said. The room stilled. I overruled that abort call. My brother was one of them. I've been punishing the sky ever since. His voice broke slightly. And her... I met his eyes. Leadership without accountability kills trust faster than any storm. A stunned hush lingered as I spoke again. "I don't recommend removal. I recommend reassignment." Gasps rippled around the table. "He doesn't need punishment. He needs to teach what failure looks like, so no one repeats it." 20 minutes later, the verdict came. Callan demoted. I was appointed head of Joint Special Operations Flight Training. No applause followed, only silence, the kind that carried respect. Outside, he waited by the corridor. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," I said. "Someone had to teach the storm how to end." He nodded once. 2 soldiers, once enemies bound by ghosts, walked into the light in separate directions. A year later, the air at the Coronado SEAL training base shimmered with salt and sunlight. Rows of fresh uniforms filled the grandstand for the first graduation of the new program, Leadership Under Fire. I sat near the back, no uniform this time, just a dark navy blazer and the quiet of someone who'd already fought their last war. On stage, Callan Hayes stepped to the podium. His hair had gone gray at the temples, his voice quieter but stronger for it. "When I was your age," he began, "I thought command meant shouting louder. Then I met someone who led through silence. She didn't need to scream to be heard." He looked toward me, eyes steady. "Her name is Harriet Vaughn. You call her Reaper Zero, but what she really reaped was understanding." The applause came slowly, then, all at once. The hall rose to its feet. For the first time, it didn't sound hollow. It wasn't for the legend, it was for the lesson. After the ceremony, he approached me, holding a sealed envelope. Inside was an old letter, the paper worn soft by years. "To whoever saved me that night. If I die tomorrow, tell my brother I saw heaven once. It was made of ice and rotor light. Signed, Michael Hayes." Tears blurred the ink. I looked up. "He forgave you first. You just needed to hear it." "And you?" Callan asked. "I stopped being angry the day I understood why you were—" We didn't shake hands. We didn't need to. Forgiveness hung between us, invisible and weightless, like the air that keeps a helicopter from falling. As I walked off the field, Lexi Moore jogged up, her grin bright against the sun. "Ma'am, I got promoted. They said your report changed command training." "Good," I said, smiling. "Now teach them to listen before they lead." Overhead, a squadron of helicopters cut through the sky, slicing the sunlight into ribbons of gold. 3 years later, Washington lay under a cool, golden sky. The marble of the monuments caught the light like old memory. Polished, solemn, unyielding. I had been retired for some time when the invitation arrived from the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. Silent heroes of the skies. The hall glowed beneath the glass dome. The air alive with quiet reverence. Suspended above the stage was my helicopter, Reaper Zero, restored in full, gleaming under the soft gold lights. Its rotors stretched wide, like wings frozen mid-flight, reflecting light across the polished floor. Below it, engraved in brass, were the words, "Reaper Zero, unknown hero of Bering Ridge." The curator called my name, but I barely heard it. My eyes stayed on the aircraft, the machine that had once screamed through ice and gunfire. Time had turned its scars into shine, its violence into stillness. A soft voice broke through the murmur. Ms. Vaughn? I turned to see a young woman holding a worn leather journal against her chest. I'm Emily Hayes. My father wanted me to give you this. The book felt warm in my hands, despite the chill of the air. On the last page, written in Callan's uneven script, were the words, "She taught me to land with grace. Tell her the storm finally cleared." I smiled. The kind that comes only when grief finally softens. He finally flew by faith, I whispered. Emily hesitated, then added, He requested the next helicopter model be named after your call sign. The Navy approved it, RZ-01. I looked up through the glass ceiling. Outside, a new helicopter swept across the sky, sunlight glinting off its frame like liquid gold. The sun began to set, pouring amber light over my face. I thought of those we lost, and those who still carried their names into the clouds. They called me Reaper Zero, I murmured, voice steady. But all I ever wanted was to bring people home, even the ones who once wished I hadn't made it back. Above me, Reaper Zero caught the dying light, no longer steel gray, but the color of peace.